Hello, everyone. It's Christina. I'm so happy to be here. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is quitting alcohol. I'm not a fan of alcohol. I don't judge. I think you are fully capable of making your own decisions. And if drinking is one of the things that you believe is necessary for you, then that's fine. Go for it. I know from my own personal experience that when I drank, I was not happy. And now that I do not drink, I am a lot happier. I actually wrote an article about alcohol and my experience with alcohol and what happened when I quit in it's an online platform called Tiny Buddha. And I was just really honest in this article, um, in an attempt to help people, to just share my story and say, hey, this is what happened to me. This is why I drank. And this is what happened when I quit. And it was really, really well received. A lot of people resonated with it. So I thought I'd jump on here and do a video for you and just talk about the things that I brought up in this article. And hopefully the things we talk about today inspire you to take a different action when it comes to alcohol and why you may need alcohol. Okay, so let's get started. So the article was called 10 Reasons Why I Ditched the Drink and What Happened When I Quit Alcohol. So the quote I opened the article up with was one by Mary Karr. She said, quote, when I got sober, I thought giving up was saying goodbye to all the fun and all the sparkle. And it turned out to be just the opposite. That's when the sparkle started for me. Such a true statement. Don't get me wrong, alcohol, it's fun. It turns off all of your judgment. It turns off all of your inhibitions. It really does set you free. I had so much fun when I was drinking, but as I got older, I wasn't interested in that kind of fun anymore. And I really regretted wasting a lot of my life drinking, and especially the money I wasted on alcohol. It's crazy. It's crazy how much we spend on stuff that it's pure poison. Okay, so the first place I want to start is because I'm a belief hacker and I work with the subconscious, and hypnosis is part of the process that I use to clear trapped emotions and limiting beliefs. I know for a fact that as children, we are basically hypnotized into thinking that alcohol is this amazing reward that we get for becoming an adult. It is not an amazing reward. For me, it was what I needed to cope with being an adult because being an adult was difficult, especially during my 20s. So I remember as a kid watching TV commercials, watching movies, and just seeing alcohol so glamorized. It was just so beautiful and seductive and fun and this mystery. I mean, even in the books I read, anything that was written by Hemingway or Fitzgerald made drinking and partying and alcoholism sound like a joyous ride. And so I couldn't wait. I looked at, these films and these TV shows and these TV commercials and was like, wow, I can't wait to do that. That looks like so much fun. So, and because you're watching TV, you're watching film, you're already in a hypnotic state. So all of that programming, alcohol is fun, alcohol will set you free, alcohol is a wild party, just gets just so deeply entrenched in your subconscious. So you're almost it's impossible to say no to it because you can't wait. So I think the first time I had a beer, I used to take sips of my dad's beer, but my parents were not big drinkers. they just, alcohol really wasn't anything my family participated in at all. Like my parents had some liquor in a cabinet that they drank in the 1970s, but never really touched. So I think my dad would have a Coors beer once in a while, and I would have a sip of his Coors. And it was very sweet and bubbly and kind of bitter and strange. And it didn't really taste good, but it was alcohol. It was like this mysterious elixir of fun. And I just, because I thought my family was so lame and boring, I just assumed, well, they don't drink a lot because they're not fun. So I remember sneaking off with my best friend at around like 12 or 13 to like have beer. I don't know where we got this beer, but I definitely know it was Corona. Oh, I think we found it on a job site. There was a lot of construction going on in my neighborhood. So we got like a couple Coronas and we snuck, I think that's how we got cigarettes too, is we would find them on job sites. We snuck away into the woods behind my house and we had this Corona. It didn't take too much for us to feel really kind of just dizzy and sick to our stomachs. And I was kind of like, oh, I thought it would just be like instant fun, it was just sort of dizzy. So I just kind of set it aside and I didn't really drink too much, even as a teenager. Alcohol just, it really seemed, if I did drink it, I didn't really know how to drink it. So I would just drink a lot and then pass out and throw up or throw up and pass out. So it wasn't fun. It was just like, oh, well, that's the stuff that makes me throw up and pass out. So no thanks. So I really avoided it. It wasn't until my 20s that alcohol began to play a primary role. I went to university. I loved university so much. I was so busy at school and I worked 30 hours a week. So I just didn't have time to drink much. It just didn't fit into my schedule. So I wasn't the big party girl at university at all. I was actually quite the opposite. I was a huge nerd and loved it. But when I graduated and I started working in the real world, that's when I started drinking because it was, I graduated from uni in May of 2002. So it was right after 9/11 and it was just so depressing. It was such a depressing time to be alive as a young person. Saying that now, looking at the world with coronavirus, I can't even imagine what young people are going through. So I graduated with a degree in historic preservation. So I was very into saving old buildings and digging up archaeological sites. So I loved archaeology and historic architecture. But because of the terrorist attacks, the economy wasn't doing so well. And I had a job as an archives assistant, and it was only part-time, and then another part-time job as a legal assistant. So together they made up the 40 hours I needed. But it just was so sad that I had worked so hard my whole life in school to then find myself in these jobs that were really boring. I was sitting all day staring into a computer, in these offices with hardly any windows, dealing with people who were also pretty miserable. And it was bleak. It was bleak. I was really depressed. And so I just started drinking. Like I couldn't wait to get to clock off at 5 o'clock. I would go to the gym and then I would just find someone to go out with, anyone, and going out in your 20s is so much fun because you're getting dressed up. You want to look all beautiful. You want to go out, you want to dance, meet guys. It's just it's like a ritual. And it was great. It was the only thing that I had to look forward to because work was just terrible. And the only way that I was going to get ahead professionally was to go back to graduate school. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just really don't want to go back for, more school, more money. It was ridiculous. Really, I mean, I think there's just too much university required in the United States. It's just insanity. Like You should be able to have a good career after 4 years of uni. End of story. You shouldn't have to go then get a graduate degree. That's crazy. But anyways, sorry, my nose is so itchy. Yeah, I was really depressed. And the other problem is that I grew up in a family where success was paramount, money and power were paramount. And so because I graduated and got, like it was totally fine. Like actually I was quite successful. I had, a really interesting position at the Department of Historic Resources for the state of Virginia. And I was working as a legal assistant, totally respectable job, especially for a 22-year-old. But according to my parents, it just wasn't successful enough. And they really were not impressed with my sort of situation in life. Plus, I needed health insurance because I was working part-time. I didn't have health insurance, so I had to pay for it myself. So I was just in this like really yucky situation. I felt really bad about myself. No one in my family was particularly proud of me. And so I just drank. I drank to escape feeling bad. I drank because when I was drinking, I felt powerful and sexy and magical and charismatic and fearless and hilarious. I felt good when I drank. And I needed that. I needed to feel good. The state of the world wasn't good. My jobs weren't good. My family wasn't good. Like I felt terrible. So I drank. And the kicker of this is I didn't know it then, but really what I was dealing with was a truckload of trauma from childhood. I mean, massive trauma. But I didn't know what that was. I didn't know why I felt so bad about myself. I didn't know that my family was particularly abusive. Like I just didn't understand any of this. So I just used alcohol to escape. And I really, really, looking back, I regret that because in my 20s, I could have traveled. I could have traveled the world. I could have saved my money and invested it. I could have done all these things. Instead, I was just depressed and just waiting for the weekend so I could go get completely smashed and not think about who I was or what I was doing because it was so depressing. I really did hate myself. I hated myself. So yeah, it was terrible. But, I was doing the best I could with what I knew. And it wasn't until I decided that the United States was just not for me. I was done with the United States. So I was engaged at the time. But I could see that my engagement was really just a way for me to get married and live a life that I should live. Like, you should have a good job. You should get married. You should live in a good neighborhood. You should have 2 kids that go to good schools, that kind of thing. I was heading down that road. And I was like, you know what? I was 27 years old and I was just like, I have to live more life than this. I can't do this to myself. And the man who I was going to marry, like, I couldn't trap him into a marriage with me because I wasn't happy. So I called it off, which was, looking back, insanely brave of me to do. We had just sent out save the date cards, and I just said, I can't do this. I'm sorry, I can't marry you. Called it all off. I was going to have this huge country club wedding. And I just said, no, I need to sort my life out. I need to find out who I am. I need to stop drinking and feeling bad about myself. So I sold everything that I owned. I quit my job. I had an okay job at a marketing agency. But again, it wasn't very exciting. So I just said, oh, well, I'm going to go and explore the world. So off I went to Australia, which is about as far away as you can get from Richmond, Virginia. It's where I grew up. And I came to Australia looking for adventure, but really looking for myself. I really wanted to figure out who I was. And I was still drinking, but not in the same way that I drank in the United States. I was a lot happier with who I was in Australia. Flash forward, I ended up falling in love and getting pregnant. And then as soon as I got pregnant, alcohol was out. And that was really amazing for me because it really forced me. I love being pregnant. It forced me to be in my body and really you know, focus on my health, and not just my physical health, but my mental health. So that's when I really began sort of unwinding all my trauma. So as a kid, I was raised in a family by a mom and a dad who were narcissistic. So my father was also, again, undiagnosed, most likely a psychopath. He was deeply, deeply troubled. I actually figured out, I actually diagnosed him when I was about 22. I saw a program on, I think it was A&E or something like that. Maybe, can't remember. It was in the States, about Ted Bundy. And I was watching this documentary about Ted Bundy, and I was like, wow, his psychological profile matches my father. Not that my father was a serial killer, but he had that same personality. He could have been a serial killer. I have no idea. Like, the guy was really disturbed. Um, so growing up was really difficult. He was extremely physically abusive. He was incredibly emotionally abusive. I mean, he never at all expressed love or affection to me. It was terrifying being around him. I used to hide from him as much as possible. Um, I hated him. I used to beg my mother to divorce him, but she was too busy sort of enabling, and she was also a little bit of a covert narcissist herself and trapped in an abusive marriage. So she was really not able to offer much of a lifeline. So I was kind of on my own, and I had, I had no one to get me out of that situation. When you're being abused by your parents, it's impossible to escape as a child. So I just had to navigate through it the best I could. But boy, oh boy, was that horrific. So yeah, lots of physical abuse, lots of emotional abuse, and I ended up hating myself. So luckily, my parents divorced when I was 14, and by the time I was 16, I never spoke to my father pretty much again after that. I just completely wrote him out of my life. He was deeply troubled and terrifying. I was pretty sure he was going to murder us all. So I was in a constant state of survival, like death. I'm going to be murdered, survival for most of my childhood, which was, it's really sad. So my heart goes out to everyone who experiences abuse of any kind. And I hope this story helps you, because now that I'm 40, I'm finally healthy and free. But anyways, back to childhood. When I was, I think 14 or 15, I started going to a psychiatrist because I was severely bulimic. But the psychiatrist at that time, no one really seemed to understand trauma or what it was. I think they had an idea of, like, maybe trauma was something that soldiers experienced when they came back from war, but they didn't really understand what complex trauma was, or they didn't even really understand what domestic violence was, because I was in a very clear-cut domestic violence situation as a kid. But my parents were also they were very well off. We were upper middle class, so domestic violence was seen as a something that only poor people experienced. It was very, very stereotyped. It was terrible. Anyways, so even though I was going to the psychiatrist, he did not understand the situation I was in. He was amazed that I was articulate and that I could see what was happening very clearly, but he kept saying that I was depressed and bulimic because of a chemical imbalance, which it's hilarious, because it wasn't a chemical imbalance, it was trauma. And so he prescribed Prozac. So I took that for a little while, but it just emotionally numbed me. So I took myself off of it, and ditched him as well because he was useless. But anywho, I'm not discouraging psychiatrists or psychiatry or psychologists. I just think you really need to work with people who are trauma trained and trauma informed. So, anyways, that's my childhood. It's hard for me to talk about because it's just so bleak, but it is what it is. Fast forward to back to Australia, I'm becoming a mother. Well, when I became a mother, there's my little boy. Hi, shh, I'm doing a video. When I became a mother, Yeah, not only was I forced to become sober, I was also forced to deal with a lot of my childhood stuff. Because I was, birthing these beautiful babies who I loved so much. And I was looking at them going, but I love them so much. Why didn't my parents love me this much? Yeah. So I started to see psychologists and different therapists. But again, it was that talk therapy, and I was very consciously aware of what was happening. I needed to clear my trauma from my body. What are you showing me? Sweetheart, come on. No, 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 no. I've got to do this. Please stop. I'm trying to. All right. Here you go. Please close the door and yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Close the door. Thanks. Speaking of them, they're home. We're on lockdown. So anyways, so I really wasn't drinking. But after my second son was born, I realized I was in a very unhealthy marriage. And so I started to drink again. I remember I joined a wine club, wine clubs. And because I was a mother, I was like, it's okay. I can have a bottle of wine at night from my wine club. That makes total sense. So I would just have like 3 glasses of wine every night to get me through each day, because like I said, I was in an unhealthy marriage and I was a young mother and I was living in Australia. So I was very far away from my homeland, from my friends, from my culture. And so it was a bit sad. But I was happy I was in Australia. Living in Australia gave me a lot of freedom to really explore who I was. So I did love that. Now, it didn't take long for my marriage to fall apart because I realized that I was drinking and numbing myself like I had done in my 20s. So I stopped doing that and I started to go to therapy. And the therapist who helped me the most, I probably went to like 7 psychologists, even a couples therapist, and they were all pretty useless because, again, they weren't trauma trained or trauma informed. But the therapist I did go see, who was wonderful, was a Jungian psychotherapist. And she was the one that started to untangle the narcissism. She was like, okay, your parents, narcissists, your husband, narcissist. There's some patterns. There's patterns here that you need to become aware of, that you're creating in your life. And I was like, aha. So the more aware I started to become of my patterns, that's when my marriage completely fell apart. And the domestic violence really ramped up after that. But, I drank through that separation to numb myself again from these extreme emotions that were coming up, because I was basically re-traumatizing myself because I was going through, this is the kicker, in those therapy sessions with the Jungian psychologist, I very clearly understood that I had created my exact childhood unconsciously. And that was the biggest epiphany for me. I was like, wow, even though I was consciously aware that my parents were not nice, my childhood was terrible, that my father was like Ted Bundy, like a sociopath and a narcissist, I had accidentally, unconsciously created that. So I knew in that moment that we don't consciously create things. No, 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 no. There's something else going on that's creating. So in a way, this whole situation was very valuable because it taught me how to create later on. But that was my big epiphany. So I managed to get divorced relatively quickly and just get out of the situation. And I was just so eager to get out of it because I wanted to finally start my life. I wanted to just live my life for once instead of being trapped in this trauma doldrum of, childhood stuff and then marriage stuff. So I started to I saw a variety of different practitioners, but I started working very somatically with my body and my trauma and using energy healing, specifically holographic kinetics, to really get down to the root cause issues of my trauma. And that was a game changer. So I did this for a couple of years and I was feeling really good about myself. And I was drinking a little bit, but not a lot. Like, it was more go to a networking event and have a drink, or go to a concert and have a drink. So it just was kind of there, but it wasn't really serving me. And because I was feeling really good about myself, I understood who I was. I was connected to my authentic self. I knew how to release trapped emotions. I was journaling. I was tapping into, how I was feeling. I just really didn't need alcohol that much. And then I sat down in 2019 and I was like, I really want to create an amazing life for myself. I'd been divorced for a few years and I was feeling really good. So I was like, what do I need to get rid of so that I can create more space for new things to come in? So I wrote a list. And at the top of that list was alcohol. Because I was like, this is just a pointless, poisonous substance that doesn't serve me at all. So I quit April 1st, 2019, and I quit alcohol, coffee, and a bunch of other things. And it was great. It was hard. Coffee was hard, but alcohol was amazing because I just started to see life so differently. And it really did force me to pay attention to how I was feeling. So when I tell people, here are 10 reasons, like in the article, 10 reasons to give up alcohol, here's number one. Giving up alcohol forced me to learn how to feel my emotions fully. So none of this, oh, I've had a bad day, I'm going to run home and have a glass of wine or whatever. Nope. I've had a bad day, so I'm going to sit down and journal about it and figure out why. And what are the emotions I'm feeling? And how do I express those emotions? How do I move through that? So it was really sort of the phase 2 in my trauma healing. I had done phase 1, the preliminary trauma healing. The phase 2 kicked off when I quit alcohol. And that was really intense, but also so rewarding, because the more trauma you heal, the freer you become. And freedom is the ultimate goal, in my opinion. And I think what I learned too is that I didn't need alcohol anymore. The more trauma I healed, the more I didn't need alcohol, because I was happy with who I was. And I was able to feel all those feelings that I wanted to feel in my 20s, feeling powerful and magical and authentic and fun. And, that was who I was. So I didn't need alcohol to feel that way. Number 2, second reason, is I learned how to play. So I think in my early years, I needed alcohol to play because I was so depressed. I needed alcohol to turn off all that judgment, all that trauma, so that I could just let loose and have a good time. And so not having alcohol really does bring back that innocence from childhood. So, I was riding my bike, going for runs, going to the beach, trekking, boogie boarding, playing with my kids. And it's just fun. You're not just sitting at a bar oh, hey, let's meet up and go to a bar and just sit there at a table and look at each other and talk about things that no one actually cares about. Just sitting at a table talking about BS with people for hours drinking is really boring. Because when you don't drink and you go to those situations, it's the most boring thing ever. You don't want to be there. You're like, this is boring, I'm going to go. You can't wait to leave. So yeah, just learning how to play and playing again and being an innocent child is such a gift. Number 3, I lost weight. Hello, alcohol is like all sugar. It's just a bunch of sugar. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your liver. It's not good for your brain. There's nothing good about alcohol. I love that these articles that come out that are wine has so many antioxidants. You should drink a glass a day. No, you really shouldn't. You can get antioxidants by just eating grapes. You don't need the alcohol So just don't pay any attention to those articles. It's just PR from wine companies, basically. And it became a lot easier for me to regulate my weight. No alcohol, your weight doesn't fluctuate. So number 4, I balanced my hormones. So my hormones were a bit crazy from all the stress, the trauma, the way I was eating, and then of course alcohol. If you're drinking pure sugar, it's going to disrupt your insulin, and that's going to pull your testosterone and estrogen levels all over the map. So best thing you can do for your hormones is to quit alcohol. Number 5, I slept so much better. Yeah, so alcohol basically prevents your body from going into deep REM sleep. So when you're drinking, you wake up feeling like you didn't sleep at all, because you didn't go into those deep stages of sleep. So after I quit alcohol and coffee too, I was really able to sleep deeper and get that really nurturing sleep that I needed. So I was waking up feeling a lot more energetic. Number 6, oh boy, did I save a lot of my money. So alcohol is crazy expensive, especially here in Australia, especially those stupid cocktails. Like when once you stop drinking, you just look at the world of drinking like, okay, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's really, really ridiculous. Like, how silly. So yeah, I highly recommend quitting alcohol because you'll save so much more money and you can spend it on more fun things. Number 7 is I developed hobbies. So prior to quitting alcohol, I think alcohol was my hobby, like, yeah, there were some other things I did, but without alcohol in my life, I had way more time. I started playing tennis. I took up sailing. I started a side hustle. So, quitting alcohol means that you're also pretty much quitting those friends you used to drink with, the friends who also had alcohol as a hobby. So yeah, way more time to do fun things and meet new people who are, more fun, more interesting. Number 8 is I'm just happier. Without alcohol in my life, I'm way happier. Alcohol really does ramp up anxiety and depression. Like, it really does affect your brain. It makes you feel sad. So even though you're drinking because you feel sad, the drinking then makes you feel sadder. It compounds your already depressed state or your already anxious state. So if you have anxiety or depression, please seek help from the appropriate people. Do not drink because it's just going to make you feel way worse. So I'm so much happier without alcohol in my life. Number 9, I don't need alcohol to talk to people. So like, again, when you go to networking events or you're dating or you're in situations where you're nervous, a lot of times people fall back on alcohol because they are scared of rejection or not being good enough or whatever. And when you heal your trauma, you're like, no, I'm okay with myself. I'm okay with all of the things that, I'm not necessarily proud of about myself, but I'm okay with those things because they're just who I am. So you go into situations and you meet new people without any of that hesitation that you used to have because you're happy with who you are. So you don't need alcohol anymore to meet people. You're just like, hey, how's it going? I'm Christina. Nice to meet you. Tell me about you. And number 10, I definitely wanted to lead by example. I think leadership is the most important skill we can all learn because we need to be leaders of our own lives. And I really wanted to show my kids that they didn't need alcohol. They're still young, 10 and 12 now, but when I quit, they were 8 and 10. So I wanted to show them that their mom doesn't need alcohol. So, neither do they. You can't tell your children not to drink if you're drinking. So, so I also wanted to say before I end this video that bottom line, I'm not advocating for the abolition of alcohol. I think, if you want to drink, drink. That's your choice. That's your decision. I'm not going to judge you for it. I drank for many years and I needed to, and I needed it. And I understand why people drink. What I'm advocating for is responsible representations of alcohol in advertising, movies, and TV. So instead of glamorizing alcohol and making it look like this really fun, magical elixir, maybe tone it down a little bit and show it. I guess if I were going to cast alcohol as a character in a film, it would be the sad, depressed, anxious person, you know? It wouldn't be the fun, amazing main character that everyone wants to be like. So I think people need to be realistic. Alcoholism is a big problem. It's not glamorous. It's not beautiful. It's sad. So I'd like to see it treated as such, especially when it comes to kids programming, like kids TV. Oh, I think what's happened with cigarettes and TV and film is great. Like you just see a lot less smoking in general. And you can see that it's, smoking has declined in the general population as well. So, careful what you consume, both, physically and mentally. And I really want people to know that alcohol was used. I used alcohol as a way to deal and cope with my unhealed trauma. So if you are drinking and you recognize that it's too often, or you use it in a way to cope, please seek help with trauma trained and trauma informed professionals. They can help you uncover your trauma and the things that make you feel, not happy with yourself or not good about life. And when you sort all that out, you just won't need the alcohol. I think it's really hard for people to just quit cold turkey without that trauma support. I think it's a lot easier to do the trauma work, and then, the alcohol just becomes irrelevant. But that's my opinion. You do need to be sober to do your trauma work, though. So, you can't be a full-blown alcoholic and going through trauma work. I also recommend in all the programs and the work I do that people do not drink, because the work I do is very deep work. It's very healing work, and you need to have full awareness to process and feel and go through the experience so that you fully clear it and heal. So I think the other thing, disclaimer I want to give people is I never sought treatment from AA because I believe my consumption of alcohol was not irregular or excessive by society's standards. So looking back, this disturbs me because I did have a problem. I was using alcohol to cope. I believe I was addicted to alcohol. I needed alcohol. No, I didn't need it every day, but I needed it to feel better. And especially in my 20s, I needed it on the weekends to feel good about myself. And in my 30s, when I was going through my divorce, I needed it to numb the emotions that were coming up. So I believe that if you are consuming more than 2 glasses of alcohol on more than 2 subsequent nights per week, then you most likely have a problem. And again, if you're using alcohol to cope, then that's definitely an issue you need to look at. So I think we definitely need to address what society deems as, alcoholism or not alcoholism. That definition really needs to be clarified. And it's really sad. I see now still on TV shows, especially TV shows and movies aimed at female audiences, wine and drinking wine is that's like all these women do in these shows and in these movies. And ladies, no, we need you. We need you sober and powerful. We do not need you drunk and sad. So don't watch those shows. And look, at the end of the day, I don't want to be preachy and judgmental. I ultimately just want everyone to do their trauma work and get the appropriate help and live happy, fulfilling, beautiful, amazing, powerful, expansive, crazy fun lives, free of alcohol, because alcohol is lame. It's really not cool. And once you quit, you'll see that and you'll be like, oh, it was so funny. I used to have like a signature cocktail and all this stuff. And like, you just see how ridiculous that all is and how much that just doesn't matter at all. So yeah, so that's me. That's my experience with alcohol. Please check out the article on Tiny Buddha if you want more details. And I am here for you. The way that I work with trauma is different. I think trauma is one of those things where you need to hit it from a variety of angles. So I have created a modality called belief hacking to access subconscious limiting beliefs, trapped energy, and trapped emotions, to clear that from your physical body and help you create a life you're really proud of. So the way I work is we do the deep subconscious healing, and that allows you to free up more space so that amazing things can come into your life. It also gets rid of anything blocking you or stopping you or sabotaging you so that you can consciously create what you desire. So please get in touch. I also, I'm a nutritionist as well. So I work with people to help them develop food plans that support their mental health. So I'm so passionate about eating in ways that support you mentally so that you can overcome anxiety and depression or any other mental health issue you may have. So please get in touch. You can find out more about me and my programs at bigbeautifulsky.com, or you can find me on Instagram at bigbeautifulsky. My name is Christina Can, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.